And again, the reality of life for a great many Australians is an uncomfortable one. This shouldn't be a country where you feel that, where you feel those financial pressures all the time. And it doesn't matter if you're a self-funded retiree, if you're a young person that's working, if you're a middle-aged person who's working. None of us feel like the joint is going the way that it should. And while the Prime Minister wants to pretend that that somehow, coded language, is all Trump's fault, the reality is that this government, while it claims to fix things, it does things that are all about buying votes. The reality is, remember, they turned around and they gave and then took away some support when it came to paying your energy bills. Sure, they'll invent a new version of spending that money again just before the election. But remember, they started off by taking $1,500 of assistance away. They've just found ways to redeploy $200 million here or $500 million there. But they've never really been able to turn around and say the $1,500 that was there at the start is still the assistance that's there at this moment. But there's something even more serious that probably is beyond government, and it's about us. It's either how we feel personally or plenty of people in our family, let alone friendship groups, are feeling. And that is the issues in and around loneliness.
G'day Australia. What if I told you that the biggest crisis in this country right now is not on any government spreadsheet? It has got a name. It is called well-being poverty, and it might be sitting in your own lounge room. Quick favour before we dive in. If this hits home, hit that subscribe button and tap the notification bell. It is free, it takes a second, and it means the world to us. Right, let us get into it.
In and around that sense of despair. And while this is not as much fun to talk about as ripping into lefties, it is a real problem, and I know that there will be plenty of people who are feeling this right now that are watching us live or watching this video whenever it appears in your feed. And so more evidence to all of this today. It comes from the Turnbull Times that Australia's life dissatisfaction levels have doubled as well-being poverty reaches new highs. Now, this is not because people don't have enough cement in their diet and they don't harden up, but here's the deal. 2.2 million Australians 15 years and older are living below the well-being poverty line, with a share of people reporting very low life satisfaction doubling over the last decade. In 2025, 9.7 or 1 in 10 Australians rated their general satisfaction with life at 4 or below out of a rank of 10. This is from the Australian Bureau of Statistics and their social survey. This number compares with 1 in 20, so again, essentially a doubling of the problem since this was first looked at, or most recently looked at in 2014. Now, the reality is that governments want to pretend when they're oppositions that the government is the whole problem. And then when they eventually get to government, they have to pretend that they are offering the solutions. When the reality is that there are many inputs that governments choose to make that see a lack of support. We've seen that around things that were available, like telehealth, mental health support. That's been cut by this government. A little later tonight, I'm going to talk about the number of kids that are on a waiting list for a taxpayer-funded mental health support. Now, again, there'll be part of you that says, well, hang on, none of that was there when I was a kid and my life was just as tough. Sure, I understand, but the reality is the kids aren't all right. Every survey tells us the kids aren't all right. The Kids Helpline have more calls than ever before, and that's not because they're a bunch of sooks. It's because there is an awful lot of pressure that exists on all of us as individuals, us as families, and failures in the wider society.
Here is the uncomfortable truth. Retirees, young workers, middle-aged professionals, dobbers know it yet, but they are all singing the same song. None of us feel like the joint is going the way it should. And it is not just about the price of milk. Let us talk energy bills for a moment, because this is where it gets cheapy. Support gets pulled, then a fraction gets reinstated, then a press release gets written celebrating it. 200 million here, 500 million there, like tossing bandaids at a broken leg. That is not a policy, that is a distraction. Now here's the pivot, because the real story is bigger than your power bill. According to the Australian Bureau of Statistics, life dissatisfaction in this country has roughly doubled since 2014. Back then, about 1 in 10 Australians rated their life satisfaction rock bottom. Today, closer to 1 in 10. That is not a rounding error. That is a nation quietly struggling. And here's the bit that should stop you in your tracks. This is not about people being soft. Kids Helpline is fielding record numbers of calls. Mental health waiting lists stretch for months. Telehealth support has been wound back right when families need it most. When the safety net shrinks and the despair grows, something has got to give.
This report description continues that amid an explosion in support for far-right and populist politics, those reporting life satisfaction scores of 4 or below are more likely to feel alienated and disempowered by their community and express lower support for multiculturalism. Do you like that little sting in the tail? Only 15% of people who are experiencing wellbeing poverty feel that they have a say on important matters affecting their communities, against the average of 32% across all Australians. And this is where it does get a little bit more political. Now, winner take all is, generally speaking, the attitude of politics. It is particularly the attitude of the current mob of people that are in charge of the Labor Party. You've seen the brutality in Victoria, that if you were a small business during the COVID time, you've seen the brutality in Victoria if you are one of the 70% of Victorians who believe that there should be a royal commission into the $15 billion worth of corruption that apparently is in and around the big build. But also I would suggest that the second part of what I just read to you is also that sense too of the theme that I've spoken about a long time, but I've certainly been focusing on since I found that badge of the Labor Party. Remember the old badge, put Australia first, the Australian flag? That's how Bob Hawke used to appeal as a Labor leader during times of an election. Well, now if you display the Australian flag, you're either a bogan or a racist. And if you say put Australia first, then somehow you're part of far right-wing politics. If you believe that anyone can come to the country as long as they love the country as much as everyone else who's in the country, again, somehow you're dog whistling in support of monoculture as opposed to the diversity is our strength excuse that is thrown up about the multiplicity of changes. We've gone in recent years from public parades on Australia Day to those being pushed aside and banned. A shame about the celebration of a national day, because people who don't want any celebration of any national day try to pretend that the national day we focus on is too problematic, too difficult, as if somehow the 13th of October would be any better on any one of those issues. If you are one of those that would be anywhere near that survey that I've just spoken about, yes, it's money. Yes, it's family breakdown. Yes, it's cultural breakdown. But it also is a sense of disempowerment that comes when you're on the wrong side of a government's agenda. When they say that having pride in what we took for granted yesterday is a culture war, when they turn around and change it. Again, you have not changed. They have changed. And because they have changed, they turn around and say that you and I don't understand modern Australia as it is, as if we don't have a set of eyes to see how buildings get bigger, cities get busier. The things we talk about with our friends change over the years because someone at the other end of the table is always going to blow up if you bring up that subject. Wellbeing is about a lot of things. Living with a government that you didn't vote for is difficult because they come up with new ways every day of reminding you why you never wanted them to be there. But the sign of a leader is somebody who understands that those who didn't vote for them have just as much right to care about the direction of the country as the majority who end up voting for them. Again, the Prime Minister today, pretending that I formally recognise your right to feel reality about economic hardship. But then in the same speech says that if you want to discuss any of those cultural things that they changed, you didn't change, you didn't vote for, you weren't asked about, that you're somehow fighting a needless and pointless culture war. No. I say it for the 800th time tonight. They changed. You didn't.
So what happens when millions of Australians feel unheard? They disengage. They stop trusting the process. 15% of the least satisfied Australians feel they have a say in their community, compared to double that nationally. That gap right there, that is fertile ground for populism on every side of the spectrum, and it should worry every single one of us, regardless of who you voted for. Then there is the culture question, and here is the twist nobody saw coming. Waving the flag once meant unity. Now it gets side-eyed. Australia Day gatherings get quietly shelved, and when people push back, they are told they're fighting a culture war they never started. Funny thing is, they did not move the goalposts, someone else did. So here's the real challenge for our leaders. Genuine leadership is not about managing the noise, it's about listening to it, including from the people who did not vote for you. Dissent is not disobedience, it's democracy doing its job. Thanks so much for watching. Please don't forget to let us know your thoughts in the comments below.